Welcome to Hacking the Hustle. This is your host, Benjamin Sklar, and today's special guest is Nina Raab, the CEO of LionRun Consulting. How you doing, Nina?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You've really made a name for yourself in the Israeli startup community as a go-to person for helping startups create their investor decks. How did you become that go-to person?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, that's for sure. I guess maybe to give a quick background about me, I'm originally from Chicago. I lived in New York for some time, and now I'm based here in Tel Aviv. And pretty much over time, like I started working with startups on the side, and then that one thing led to another. I started LionRun, and I really just like put an emphasis on like connecting as much as possible and building, a personal brand and whatnot, which is what like has, I think, catalyzed a lot of LionRun's growth and built my team. And we've worked with now hundreds of companies between both the US and Israeli ecosystems, helping them prepare to fundraise. So, but yeah, like there were a lot of people and pivotal moments throughout that, like the last few years that have gotten us to where we are today, which I'm very thankful for.
What type of founders do you usually help?
Yeah, so typically we work with early stage companies, between seed to Series B is our primary client base. And yeah, we're really industry agnostic. So we're working with anywhere from fintech, cyber, aerospace, you name it. It's kind of across the board, health tech, biotech. But yeah, typically early stage, we like to see, we like to work with companies that typically have, some sort of MVP to work off of. And, typically like maybe they raised a smaller round prior. Now they're going for, their first institutional round. And that's kind of like where we come in to like prepare their whole data room, build out all of their materials, help them position themselves for their raise.
Tell me more about the services you provide in addition to creating the deck.
Yeah, so we have a pretty robust three-phase process that we've built out over the last few years. And again, this has all been as a result of the struggles that we've seen founders face and from firsthand from our clients. So we have three phases, and I apologize for the background noise. You can edit that out. And so we have a three-phase process. Phase one is pretty much building the foundation for the companies. We work with them to build their market research and strategy. We put together their business plan, investment memorandum, business memorandum, however you want to call it, and their financials. We use that then to bring it to move on to phase two. And that's where we do pretty much everything on the creative side, where we'll do their branding, we'll build out then the actual investment collateral. So like the master deck, the teaser, one pager, and that's kind of where our, bread and butter process comes in. Websites, and again, everything more external. And then phase three is more on the kind of like the investor relations side. So we'll do the pitch preparation, email templates, investor research, and then data room setup and management, and kind of like ongoing, any supporting services that they'll need throughout the process. But yeah, like we have companies that come to us and like, hey, we want to be able to work. We trust you guys. We want you guys to kind of run your whole process. We have some companies that come to us and they're like, we know exactly what we need, this, and this. Okay, great. It really depends, but yeah, that's kind of like the typical engagement.
What are the common mistakes that you see founders making at the early stage?
Wow, there's a whole lot. I think that a lot of times again, I can touch on a whole bunch depending on, specifically, but I would say early stage, again, usually typically comes down to like telling your company's story in one way or another and doing that in a way that's compelling, concise, and like really digestible for someone to understand. So for early stage founders, a lot of times, and especially if they're technical, a lot of times I see the struggles around just being able to tell that story um and just breaking it down so it's very understandable. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that like I see is like overcomplication, oversharing of information. And yeah, like thinking that like someone who is looking at your deck for the first time and probably has minimal exposure to like what you're doing can understand like right away, which you can there just seems to be kind of like a gap of that understanding. um you know because if you're super ingrained in your company, it's hard to kind of detach yourself and look at it from an objective third person point of view.
That makes a lot of sense. So on that point, what's some advice you have for founders out there?
Yeah, so again, like it all comes down to like simplifying. For example, I would say two things when explaining your company. One, you always want to have your one-liner on hand. Someone says, "What do you do?" Let's say it's like you're in an elevator, you have less than 30 seconds to explain what your company does. Have your one-liner on hand. And two, try to break down how it works in no more than 3 to 5 steps. That's kind of the biggest piece of advice when it comes, at least specifically for like the storytelling that we try to advise them, and what we implement also when we're like crafting the materials and whatnot.
Okay, good to know. What are some trends you see in the startup world right now?
Um, I mean, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of different areas that you can look at. Obviously, you have AI that everyone talks about that like is just taking over everything. But like, I guess more specifically, are you looking
Yeah,
in
in the
terms of like
fundraising world.
fundraising
Yeah,
or?
fundraising. Israeli startups fundraising in the United States.
Well, a lot of people obviously are aware of that. Like right now, it's a very difficult time for the Israeli ecosystem. If you ask one person, they'll say, this is times of distress are also times of opportunity, which I definitely agree with. Doesn't mean that like the Israeli ecosystem isn't gonna, obviously is gonna take a hit in some way. I don't think that like discredits um the actual I guess like encouragement and like motivation for founders here to want to like continue to do what they're doing. But I think it's a little bit more difficult given the situation. But I also see that like um investors in the US also are eager to invest in the Israeli ecosystem 100%. Like if anything, again, it is an opportunity right now. So like I've been notified about a bunch of different um, opportunities and like initiatives to like continue to invest in the Israeli economy, to continue to bring the products and the technology to life. Yeah.
You're in Tel Aviv right now, right?
Yeah.
Do you miss living in America?
I love Israel. I love living here. I love the ecosystem here. I love Tel Aviv. I love like the vibes, all encompassing. So right now I'm very happy where I am. But
What,
New York's great.
what do you think the Jewish community in New York could do to help Israeli founders based in Israel more?
Um, well, to be honest, I don't think there's like one right way. I've heard of different initiatives. Some people are saying like, hey, we need manpower, we need people to help while our executives are in Miluim in the reserves, we need people to help. I think that's kind of like a short-term band-aid. Because I don't think that's like really sustainable in the long term. I've also heard different initiatives to like incubate the companies and bring into the US. And then like give like the executives, like the founding team, like an equity stake to be able to come back to. Again, there's a lot of different initiatives. But to be honest, like I think my advice for like anyone who's in the US that wants to get like just be able to be a part and contribute is just like come here and learn and connect, and you know, connect with people, like also virtually, like through LinkedIn and through other ways, just to see like however they can be of help. I think, you know, success and is always the answer. You know, if like they try to, obviously our enemies want anything but, so the answer is to do the opposite.
Well said. Where do you see the future of LionRun going?
So we're honestly, we're really growing really fast in terms of like our team. We actually have, if you even look at our website, like we have the 3 phases. We also will be building out a phase 4 soon to be to be continued. But and can touch a little bit more on that soon. But you know, kind of like helping like post-raise services. And who knows, there's a lot of different areas that we can take it. Right now, I'm really just like focusing on, you know, continuing to build our name, continuing to help the ecosystem here. And yeah, we'll see.
What are some mistakes you've made in building your business that you can share?
I would say one thing that like if I wish I could go back to like the early days, I wish I was just, there's something that like I'm sure most founders know. It's like it's called the silver object syndrome. It's like, you know, you start something and then obviously as you grow, people start to know your name, people start to know like what you're doing, they reach out, they want to get you involved in like other initiatives and whatnot, which is so amazing. But the biggest thing I would say, like I wish early on, like I stayed more focused and was more confident in what I was, and had more conviction about like what I was doing, instead of like getting like sidetracked, rather than just like staying focused and doing exactly what I was doing. And yeah, like I think the biggest struggle I see, like probably young professionals, entrepreneurs and people who want to, you know, start their own companies, is like the hardest part is like deciding what you want to do. And then once you've decided that, then you can go all in. But the hardest part is deciding, is that first part. It's like deciding what you want to do. And I think once that decision is made, then like just going all in on that and stay focused.
Right. What do you think you in 5 years would tell yourself now?
That's a very, I don't know. Let me think about that. I think, like honestly, I just think it's like you can do it. Like that's the biggest thing. Like if I have any sort of doubts about something, I'm not sure. Like maybe maybe I should do. And if I'm just like over analyzing things, like it's just do it. So stop thinking about it. Just do it. I think that's been relevant at every single point. And even people now, like people who come to me for advice on like, you know, and want, you know, to just like understand how they can get started and like building their own business. Like it's really just, you got to just do it, and don't overanalyze, don't be afraid. Because what's the worst that you really, like at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? Like it doesn't really go anywhere, and okay, then there's a million other opportunities. Like yeah.
Besides helping them with pitch decks and the data room, what other problems do you think most founders have that no one's addressing yet?
I will say what I see for like, at least for Israeli companies, this a big struggle that like I think people think it but don't necessarily articulate it, is like how like the Israeli ecosystem and Israeli founders are so amazing on the technology and product side, but like really lack on selling and more on like the business and marketing side of things. And so I see a lot of amazing companies that have an amazing technology. And I'm like, wow, like if only like this, if the CEO was better at selling, built a personal brand of themselves, like, and kind of just like went all in on that, then like that I think that's what people value in the US market. And I often see kind of like that mistake.
Mhm.
Um, um, yeah, that's just like a recent insight that I was actually talking to someone about the other day.
Are there a lot of Americans in Tel Aviv right now, like you, who are young and part of the startup ecosystem that you haven't met yet?
That I have not yet met yet.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that I haven't met yet. But if there's someone who I haven't met who has been following me in some way and wants to meet, I'm happy to. But there's an amazing, amazing ecosystem, amazing community, and like people that are just like willing to help. And also, I think there's a huge surge of like Olim coming to Israel and wanting to start their own businesses and like finding a creative way to make a living here and start a career here that isn't like a typical route that like you would see in the US. And I think that's like an amazing thing. Actually, a friend of mine, Andrew Jacobson, just posted a post the other day of like 40 Olim started businesses. And I think it's like amazing just to see that. Yeah.
Incredible. All right. So if people want to reach out to you, how do you recommend they find you and send you a message?
LinkedIn's probably the best way to connect with me. Yeah, you can just send me like a private message, a DM. You can also check out our website, LionRunConsulting.com, if you want to learn more about like what we do and the work that we do with startups. And yeah, you can also shoot me an email at Nina@LionRunConsulting.com as well.
Awesome. All right. So any last words before we go?
Um, Well, thank you, Ben, for having me. Keep doing what you're doing, like uplifting the ecosystem and all your posts and everything. I love to see it. And if any like entrepreneurs or founders are, kind of contemplating if they should start what they want to do, my advice is just go for it.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Nina. It was great to see you.
Likewise,
Wish you all
thanks
the
so much.
best, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome.